Welcome back, Guardians. Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. It might seem like there's a good bit of time until the release of the final shape, but between now and then, we have more seasonal storyline developments that will continue to connect us into the new expansion and its episodes, and we'll also have the 10th year anniversary in April. If it's anything like the 30th anniversary, we can expect a good deal of new content that could even include new exotics. We've also got an upcoming update in March that will introduce 6 new legendary weapons, which will be obtained through Nightfall, Trials of Osiris, and Iron Banner. And maybe, just maybe, all of this will give everyone enough things to do to tide them over until the final shape. And as we look onto the new horizon, there's something that you will need to make sure that you have completed before the final shape releases, and that is obtaining all of the available God Rolls and craftable blueprints of all 34 of the Helm vendor weapons. Once the final shape is here, the Helm will get a complete facelift, and could even get removed, and as we transition from Lightfall to the final shape, all 34 of these weapons will be removed from the game. Since adding a rotation of exotic missions, Bungie has provided a way of returning these seasonal weapons back into Destiny, but we probably won't see these weapons enter into that rotation anytime soon. So if you're a collectionist, or just a player who needs something to do over these next couple of months, then you will definitely want to start working on getting these. I wouldn't go as far as to say that all of these weapons are must-haves. There's certainly several standouts, but there's also plenty of lemons in the mix. But with how Destiny's sandbox continuously changes, it's hard to say what's going to be good when the final shape releases. And it's better to be prepared than to be caught off guard, regretting that you missed out on an opportunity to get a powerful, meta-defining weapon when it was still available. So with that said, let's go ahead and check out each of these vendors and their weapons. Starting with the war table, we've got the Caretaker Sword, which is a pretty solid option that can offer either incandescent or surrounded. It's not the best legendary sword, but it's definitely the prettiest. The Regnant grenade launcher is one of the best DPS weapons that this vendor provides, essentially the void variant of the Wendigo. I'm not a big fan of the Prodigal return and would much rather use several other grenade launchers before ever going with this one, but it does offer a few solid trait combinations that do include Volt Shot. I really like the Perpetualis. It's a great performing auto rifle and it synergizes perfectly with Strand. It's not as sought after as a Rufus's Fury, but it's still one hell of an auto rifle. I remember when the Royal Executioner came out, and everyone was going crazy over Envious Assassin with Reservoir Burst. Since then, there's been other fusion rifles that have now taken over the mantle, but the Royal Executioner is still a great weapon to have. I never got big on the Raconteur Stasis bow, but I think a lot of that has to do with how Stasis has performed over the last couple of months. With that said, this bow does have some amazing stats, and offers several top tier weapon trait combinations that will be a benefit in both PvP and in Crucible. And now we rotate across the helm to visit the Sonar Station. We've got 2 sets of weapons here, the Deep Taken weapons and the revised Gambit Reckoning weapons. The just-in-case Solar Sword is about as beneficial as the Caretaker, but the one advantage that this one has is the option of Unrelenting, but overall, it's kind of a mid-tier sword. The Soul Survivor is in a similar position. I want this sniper to be good, but it just doesn't have the right combination of traits to really stand out above some of the more top-tier sniper options. The Last Man Standing is, in my opinion, one of 2 must-have Reckoning weapons. It's an aggressive framed shotgun that has a ton of great weapon trait combinations that include 1-2 punch. The most appealing thing about the Outlast Pulse Rifle is the inclusion of Heal Clip, otherwise it's a pretty big disappointment. In a world where the Callus mini tool exists, there's not much need for another solar SMG, especially the Bug Out Bag, with its subpar weapon trait options. The spare Rations is, in my opinion, the best option out of these reckoning weapons. 140 hand cannons recently got buffed, and this one can drop with kinetic tremors, which is going to tear through enemies in the PvE. But even in the Crucible, this is an extremely powerful weapon. And now we transition into the taken weapons, and these look really cool. We have the Thin Precipice, a strand vortex sword that does have some interesting weapon trait combinations, but not interesting enough to make this a very sought after sword. A Distant Pull is one of the best PvE snipers that any of these helm vendors offer. A 140 rapid fire stasis sniper that offers several top tier weapon trait combinations that can include explosive payload or headstone. Until Its Return is another standout shotgun that will really lay into bosses and champions. It's a rapid fire shotgun that can include auto reloading or overflow with surrounded, vorpal, or trench barrel. Different Times has the benefit of being the only strand pulse rifle, but that doesn't mean that it's amazing. It has some solid weapon trait combinations, but overall, this 540 RPM pulse just underperforms. The Rapacious Appetite is in a similar situation. It's got really nice weapon trait options, but it's got piss poor stability, and overall, its base stats are just lackluster. The Targeted Redaction is another standout hand cannon from this vendor, a 120 hand cannon that performs just as well as the spare Rations, if not better, since this one offers options of Envious Assassin with either explosive payload or destabilizing rounds. And with that, we rotate once more and now end up in the Antheum, where we have 6 different weapons. We have the Eleatic Principle, which is really a fun machine gun, and you'd think that with target lock, it could deal out a decent amount of damage. But sadly, this LMG lacks a weapon trait that will automatically refund ammo, which really holds it back. In a lot of ways, the Locus Locutus is built like the Distant Pull. They have a lot of the same weapon trait options, but the Distant Pull benefits from having a rapid fire frame, and those just perform better right now. The Semiotician is currently the only available strand rocket launcher, out of just 2 that's in the game. It does offer explosive light or bipod, but this is another case of underperformance due to not having a weapon trait that would refund or overflow ammo. I never really understood the appeal that some players had with the Kept Confidence hand cannon. In almost every single way, the Round Robin is a more reliable strand hand cannon, and I continue to stand by that. The Eremite fusion rifle is hands down the best weapon that this vendor has, and one of the best weapons out of the helm, so it's definitely a must-have. With Envious Assassin and Controlled Burst, you're going to absolutely melt bosses. Brya's Love is another standout option from this vendor, a Void Scout Rifle that performs a lot like the Vision of Confluence, great base stats, and even better weapon trait combinations. Not a weapon that you'll want to miss out on. And now we take our final transition over to the Spirit's Anchor, where we have 4 revised Undying weapons and 6 new Wish weapons. Now, I'll be honest, I am not a fan of the Undying weapons. They all just have crappy archetypes and base stats that result in these weapons being pretty lackluster. The Imperative is probably the best out of this bunch, since it has the option of kinetic tremors, along with some other strong weapon trait combinations. The Subjunctive is just another subpar SMG, and in a world where the Aikilos SMG is still available, there's no reason to go with the Subjunctive. The Adhortative is better than the Outlast, especially since it can drop with both Incandescent and Heal Clip, but I'd still rather have the BX Battler than either of these pulse rifles. The Optative feels like a Walmart brand version of the Palindrome with less appealing weapon traits, and it just doesn't feel right in general, probably because it's a 180 precision frame, and that's just not the meta right now. And now we move up to the new season of the Wish weapons, and we start with the Doomed Petitioner, a surprisingly powerful and unique fusion rifle that can drop with Reconstruction, Envious Assassin, or Permeability, along with Surrounded. It's not often that we get a rapid fire arc pulse rifle that actually has good base stats and good weapon traits, but that's exactly what we've gotten out of the Scalar Potential, the best arc pulse rifle that I've used since the Horror's Least. The Lethophobia is another interesting weapon that has a mix of really solid weapon traits that will be beneficial in both PvE or in Crucible. We've got options like Repulsor Brace, which you don't see very often out of a bow, and we also get options of Golden Tricorn, Disruption Break, or Explosive Head. The Appetence finally introduces a legendary stasis trace rifle, and it actually works out pretty nicely since it's got great base stats and marvelous weapon trait combinations like Killing Tally or Headstone with Overflow or Clown Cartridge. I think it's safe to say that the Scatter Signal is the biggest standout of this bunch and probably one of the best weapons out of the entire helm. A Strand Fusion Rifle offering terrific combination options like Controlled Burst and Overflow, or the new weapon trait called Slice, which severs enemies, causing them to deal less damage. And finally, we have the Supercluster Shotgun, another Strand shotgun, but unlike Until Its Return, this is a slug-framed shotgun that can drop with Reconstruction and Vorpal, or Surrounded. This shotgun will have a lot of synergy with Strand builds, since it can also drop with both Hatchlings and Slice together, so definitely a must-have shotgun going into final shape. And with that, we have now covered all 34 of the legendary vendor weapons available at the helm. At the time of this video, you have just over 3 months before the final shape releases, so you do have some time to get these, but that time will quickly start dwindling down in the upcoming weeks. To which I wish you all the best of luck throughout the rest of this season and into the final shape. Let me know your thoughts about the events that we still have left in Lightfall and which of these vendor weapons you are still in need of. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.